Easter eggs today, and we're gonna start with the pate choux dough. So I've got my stove on, maybe, hold on, completely unplugged. Now the stove's on. This hot plate is here because I can't bring an entire stove here. I've got my water. You can also use milk because milk has protein in it. It's gonna be a little bit richer and more delicious, but you can also use water if you don't have milk. Today I'm gonna use water. To that, I have some salt and sugar here, just a little bit. You just need to season the dough just because otherwise it's pretty bland by itself. So just a little bit of salt, a little bit of sugar. And I've got my butter here. And this is room temperature butter. You could also use frozen butter or cold butter because it's just going to come to temperature and boil here. And I'm gonna bring this mixture to a full boil. And once that happens, then we're gonna add our flour all at once and cook it. So I have this on full heat, and while this is happening, I'm just gonna talk about what I imagine this to be just because I haven't made this before. So I'm going to make egg-shaped shells with pate choux dough, and I'd love to fill it with some lemon curd and light Italian meringue. And I want to decorate with royal icing on top like Easter eggs. And I think it's going to be a little bit tough just to have the pate choux dough hold its shape as an Easter egg, so we'll see how many of those we end up actually getting to look like eggs. And pate choux tends to has a tendency to crackle on top or like kind of poof, and that's its nature. You can kind of temper that down if you use a cracklin, which is kind of like a cookie type dough that you roll really thinly and place on top of the pate choux dough before you cook it. But in that case, then you have a cookie topping, which I don't know if I really want because I want to be able to decorate the top by myself. So I am going to leave the pate choux dough as is without any crackling on top and see how that turns out. I am expecting a lot of bumps and ridges, but hopefully we'll be able to cover that. I see everything's coming to a boil. So at this point, I'm going to turn the heat off, take it off the heat, and then I'm going to add my bread flour all at once. And the reason we use bread flour is because it has more protein in it, and that way it has more structure. So if you have an issue with your cream puffs collapsing a lot, it could be that you're not cooking it enough, so it needs some more time. It also helps if you use something like bread flour instead of all-purpose to give a little bit more structure, and that way it'll just hold up a little bit better. So you can see this dough cooking. I'm going to set my timer for 3 minutes. That's about the amount of time you want to cook this. And I'm going to cook this on medium for about 3 minutes. And the idea is to just cook the dough a little bit and bring it to a temperature so that when you add the eggs, it forms a nice pliable batter-like dough. Just keep stirring for 3 minutes. You'll see a film start to form on the bottom as the flour cooks. Try to just scrape that up. This is what it's starting to look like. I wish I had a clear pot, but I don't. So I'm not gonna lie, this part takes a little bit of arm strength. 3 minutes goes by really slowly when you're doing this. The look of the batter doesn't really change too much. It just becomes a little drier as you go. And you're cooking out a lot of the moisture while you're doing this. Just make sure you don't burn it. You're just kind of constantly stirring, because if you stop too long, you're going to burn it on the bottom, and then you'll kind of have to start over, I think, because then you'll have little burnt bits. Okay, so this is what you would call choux dough or pate de choux, and it's the basis for cream puffs or eclairs or a lot of different desserts that have this incorporated into it. But the most common you'll see is eclairs and cream puffs made with this dough. And once you do it, it's not too difficult. I think the toughest thing about making cream puffs is cooking it long enough, because it looks cooked. When you look at it in the oven, if you look just at the color, it looks kind of, oh, it's golden brown and it looks cooked, but you really want to make sure you you bake it for the full amount of time. If you bake it too little, it will be golden brown, but then as it cools, because of the moisture content still inside the cream puff, it's going to just kind of sink down and deflate. So you won't have like a nice round puff. You'll just have like a pancake. So if you make a large cream puff, you really need to cook it for longer. There's the alarm. We're going to make regular size ones, and I'll be baking them for 40 to 50 minutes. If you're making mini ones, you can bake them for around 20 to 25 minutes. And you really want them to be kind of a deep brown. There's no real harm in them being nicely browned. Okay, so here's my choux pastry right now. The full 3 minutes have passed, and it looks nice and kind of doughy, and a nice battery dough. There we go. You really shouldn't see any oils or things floating around. It should be nicely emulsified into a homogeneous mixture. If you see oils floating around here, it means your mixture has separated and split, and that is really hard to recover from, so I would start over. Okay, so I'm going to put this away, and we're going to use our mixer now. A pretty mixer with the clear bowl so you can see what's happening. So a lot of people do this part by hand, where you stir in eggs one by one and mix it with like a wooden spoon and such. And I don't want to do that because my arm's already tired. So I'm going to do it with a mixer. I just don't see the appeal, and I don't think it's really necessary. I don't think there's an advantage to it, except you look kind of artisan, I guess. Artisanal. I'm gonna be lazy. So I've got my dough here. It's pretty hot, and you want it to be pretty warm. Okay, here we go. So I've got my eggs here, and I combined everything. I whisked my eggs together so that I just have this mixture to deal with instead of cracking eggs and trying not to get shell in it at the same time. So here we go. I'm gonna put them on low so I just don't splatter myself. And I'm gonna add a little bit of mixture of egg at a time. And you don't wanna dump this all in at once. You want it to be able to absorb the egg, and then you'll add a little bit more. Imagine like 1 egg's worth. So I can see the egg's been absorbed here, and I'm gonna add a little more. So the amount of egg is actually the variable when you're making pate choux. You want to definitely have the amount of egg that's recommended, but also you want to look for some visual signs that the dough is ready, and I'll show you when we're getting close. So this egg is absorbed, and I'm just gonna add a little more. You want to end up with a pretty glossy dough that is really pipeable and will hold its shape when piped. I'm turning up the speed just a little bit so that dough comes together. You can see the dough tends to get stuck on the side here, so I'm gonna scrape here in a little bit and make sure that everybody gets to play in the pool. Okay, let me just stop it really quickly. Do a quick scrape. When you scrape your mixer bowl, make sure you get all the way down to the bottom. Sometimes there's flour or just bits of stuff stuck in there. Okay? More egg, almost there. A quarter cup of egg left. I'm going to start monitoring this mixture for visual signs that it's done. I'm going to turn the speed up. So you see why I want to do this by machine and not by hand. It takes a while and your arms will be pretty tired. Okay, so that's pretty mixed in. I'm going to lift this beater. And what you kind of want to see is like this V shape here. If there's not enough moisture, it will kind of clump. If there's too much moisture, it'll just kind of run down. So I'm going to stop here even though I have this much egg left. But I'm going to stop here because that's enough for me. And if you add all of this and it doesn't need it, then I'm just going to end up with a really runny batter that won't hold its shape. So this is enough. So I'm going to scrape it down one more time and give it a final mix. And then we'll pipe. Okay, we're done. This is our pate choux dough. So I've got my disposable piping bag with a 3/4 inch piping tip. I go for the larger ones just because I like how they size up when they're baked. This is a variable, so you can go larger or you can use a star tip if you want to make eclairs that have little ridges on them. You can make them smaller, like you could use a half tip. I wouldn't go smaller than a half tip just because then you'll just have, it would be too thin. So the piping bag here, I have, you don't need a coupler for this, it's just a large piping tip. I've got this in here and I'm going to twist it like this. The plastic container is just to hold the piping bag as I fill it so that I don't have to do it. So I've got 2 half sheet pans here and 2 parchment sheets. I am going to secure the parchment here with little dabs of pate choux, just little tiny dabs to secure the ends. Okay, so for the egg shape, I'm kind of going to start out cylindrical and push it out a little. So it comes out more like an oval. Pate choux puffs up but doesn't really spread too much. So you can kind of get them pretty close together. And I'm going for a moderate egg shape. I'm piping at a 45-degree angle, which makes it easier to kind of see what shape you're piping. If you do it this way, it's a little bit harder to see. I'm trying to make one end of it a little bit fatter than the other, but I might just have to take the best of the batch. Okay. Just imagine an egg. Try your best to make that shape. Almost done. And we'll do another one. I would say the amount of dough that I'm piping here is a regular cream puff size. Definitely not minis. And I want to bake these for at least 50 minutes. I would say it's a safe bet to turn your pans halfway as you're baking them. If you know that your oven has hot spots in it, it's a good idea to turn the pans halfway. And that way everything cooks relatively uniformly. Otherwise you have some that are well baked, you have some that are underbaked, it's just a mess. So here we go, almost done. So I have 2 pans. Ooh. The last thing I'm going to do is take a little bit of cold water and I'm going to pat down these little peaks. Just to make sure that everything has a smooth top as much as we can. So wet your finger every time. Okay, so this is what it looks like. And I'm going to bake this for 50 minutes. So the cream puffs have come out of the oven. I'm going to stuff them with lemon curd and Italian meringue so that it's a play on lemon meringue pie. And I'm going to make my Italian meringue right now. I already have my lemon curd made. I just need to make this, have them cool down, and then I can stuff my pate choux eggs. Okay, this is almost ready. So this is a hot sugar syrup, and I'm going to add it to some egg whites with some cream of tartar egg. Add slowly and aim for the side of the bowl, not the beater. Otherwise, you'll get some hot sugar on your face. Once the sugar's in there, we're going to beat at medium-high for about 2 minutes. So our Italian meringue is done. I did add some vanilla in here just to flavor it to be extra tasty. It's pretty good. So usually Italian meringue is torched when you put it on desserts, but I'm going to leave them as a filling. This should last about a couple days, so you want to kind of eat it fairly quickly. So the cream puffs are out of the oven. You can see some of them look more like eggs than others. Some of them look more like potatoes, but it's fine. We'll work with it. I'm going to first fill them with the Italian meringue before it kind of stiffens. And then I'm going to add in some lemon curd. So I'm kind of aiming for half and half. And I'm going to show you what I usually do to stuff cream puffs, because I don't really like the stuffing nozzle. This is personal preference, but I've just never gotten used to that nozzle. And like, it kind of looks like this, but has like a long spear looking thing that you kind of stick into desserts. It's just never worked well for me, and I just get frustrated. So I'll show you what I end up doing. So you can put a hole wherever you want as far as filling. Usually it's in the bottom. Sometimes I like to go for the top or the sides, just depends on where I think it's going to be less visible. I'm going to go with the bottom for this one. So what I usually do is just make a hole here. And if your cream puffs have baked correctly, they should have a hollow in the middle, which is pretty ready for filling. You can see this one kind of concaves a little bit, and that just means that next time bake a little longer. And this is kind of a good shape for the pate choux to hold. So I'm just going to make a hole in the bottom of all of these. I feel like this just helps to fill it a little bit easier. I don't know, if something doesn't work for me, it just never does. So this is kind of up to you. If you like that nozzle, that's fine. I forget what it's called, but it's kind of, I call it like a jelly donut nozzle. But okay, so every one of these has a hole in it. And here's another thing I do when I'm a little bit lazy or I'm out of bags or whatnot. I'm going to use a gallon Ziploc bag to fill these. And I don't use a nozzle, I just go directly from the Ziploc bag. So I'm going to fill my meringue here. It smells nice and vanilla-y. Okay, here we go. It's like a cloud in a bag. So you want to get the air out of it as much as you can. I'm going to zip it up and push the air out all the way to the end. So I'm just going to start pushing here. If you have a pretty good quality bag, it shouldn't burst, but I have had Ziploc bags just pop on me. It's not the best. So just do a very light pressure and just push a little bit. Remember, we're trying to fill only halfway so that the lemon curd can get in there as well. And this is pretty light. You won't really feel the weight of it in your hands. But once we get the lemon curd in there, I think it'll feel a little bit heavier. Okay. So for me, this is easier. Make a hole and then fill it separately. But again, up to you. Kind of really stoked that this held its shape. I've just picked the prettiest ones, so don't feel weird if some of them don't look right. They still make pretty good snacks, or if they came out, you know, a little bit wonky, you could always slice them in half and kind of, you know, do like sandwich mode, which is fun too. So usually when I make cream puffs, I fill from the top, just because I usually make pastry cream filled cream puffs, and when you do it from the top, you can kind of cover the hole with the chocolate icing. But in this case, I want the top to be pretty clean because I want to cover it with royal icing decoration. So for now, I'm gonna go ahead and do the bottoms, but usually I like to do the tops. So I'm gonna use a disposable pastry bag for my lemon. The lemon curd is heavier than meringue, and when you squeeze it, I might put a little too much pressure, and there's a greater chance the bag will pop if I use a Ziploc. So I'm gonna go ahead and use this. This is lemon curd that I've made ahead of time and chilled, so it's pretty cold. And you definitely wanna make this curd ahead of time so that it's ready to go. Otherwise it won't set. And you'll just have really weird runny curd. So here we go. I'm going to try to push this in pretty far, inject it with curd until I see curd trying to push its way out. And it should feel pretty heavy. If it comes out the top because it's so full, you can always wipe it away. But it's really disappointing when you get like an understuffed cream puff or eclair. You can see it's kind of expanding. It's kind of like filling tires. This is strangely satisfying. It's pretty fun. Okay. I'm gonna add some more curd. I guess if you wanted, you could do an orange curd or a lime curd or passion fruit curd. I'm just trying to do kind of a riff on lemon meringue pie, and it kind of reminds me of like Easter stuff because peeps are yellow, I guess. Last one. So see how some of the filling comes out? I'm going to scrape that, and then I'm going to stick this in the freezer for a few minutes while I make the royal icing for the decorations. And then I'm just going to take a clean paper towel and just clean it up nicely. This is an optional step, but I just don't like the idea of getting stuff, you know, smeared all over my plate, so let's just try to be clean. This goes in the freezer for a few minutes, and I'm gonna make my royal icing. I'm gonna color the royal icing that I just made, and you wanna do this fairly quickly because I can already see the sides of my bowl is starting to crust over. So I'm gonna make some different colors. I made a little less than about a cup of royal icing, and I don't think I'll need that much just to decorate these eggs. So let's see. I'll do a white as a base, and then I will do some pink and blue and yellow. I'm going to add little amounts to each bowl because I don't need a lot, but I do want a lot of different colors here. So I have white. Let's do a tiny bit of orange. You don't need a lot of food coloring. This is gel food color by AmeriColor. I really like these. This is deep pink. If you want more of a pastel color, just add a tiny bit of food coloring, and then you could also add a little bit of white to the color. I'm actually looking to dip the Pate in here and have it kind of level out. So I'm gonna add a little more water to this. I'm not a royal icing expert by any means. I'm not one of those people who does the crazy sugar cookies. I think I can do maybe 10 before I'm like, no, that's enough. But it's fun. I like the idea of it more than I like the execution, I think. But I'll always try to give it a shot. So here's the flow of the white one. I think I wanted a little bit more. You get the sides and stuff because it will start to dry on you. And I'm kind of looking at these other bowls going, are they dry? But let's go fast. So I think that's pretty good as far as a dip. I don't want it to be like falling off, but we'll see how that goes. So here's my orange. It's very orange. I'm gonna add some white and you can see kind of how the color changes. So here's the orange before. There's some white. And again, this is gel food coloring. A little bit goes a long way. So there's the after. Do you see how it kind of pastels it up? I'm really liking the color on that. I'm gonna put this in a Ziploc bag so it doesn't dry out. I'm not a huge fan of using like 10,000 disposable piping bags just to do royal icing. So I'm gonna use Ziploc bags. I'm not gonna pretend to be that girl, sorry. Here's my pretty orange. Again, I just need a little bit of the decoration colors. So that should be okay. Here's orange, here's yellow. I'm gonna go ahead and add a little of this white food color to all the bowls. This is such a peeps color. When you close it, try to get all the air out as much as possible because otherwise you'll get like air bubbles. I'm gonna bring our puffs in and then I'm gonna dip them in white first. I'm gonna dip it kind of up to here. So I don't think anybody really likes the taste of a really thick layer of royal icing. So I'm gonna try to keep it minimal as much as I can. I'll use a handy dandy tool here. Just smoothing out the edges and filling in any cracks as best you can. So I'm dipping and trying to get the excess off. And then I'm filling in all the little crevices here. This is painting, right? This is painting. And that's about it for the white royal. I like piping because I generally feel like I have a little bit more control, but not always. So I'm just piping whatever I feel like. Some polka dots. Okay, so basically I put all the little colors in different baggies and put my decorations on top of the white flooded royal icing here. And let's just say it's tie-dyed Easter eggs. I'm gonna let this dry a little bit and kind of clean up the sides, and then we'll cut into them. Okay, I'm gonna cut into one of these real quick, just to show you the insides. So you have the lemon curd, lemon meringue, and royal icing outside. Okay. If you don't want to go through the trouble of decorating, you can also kind of do it this way. This is kind of a hodgepodge way of doing it, but I put the lemon curd inside and the lemon meringue on the outside. You can choose to torch this or not. I'm gonna let it be for now. So here's the lemon curd. So if you like lemon, try these lemon meringue puffs.